Well, this is the Well Brewed podcast, where we share our 40 plus years of commercial brewing experience to help fellow beer lovers on their journey of building a brewery. Full disclosure, we do own a brewery equipment business, but we aren't here to sell you anything. This is truly about helping the industry that we love. And I didn't say Indus we like I did in the last two episodes. I just was looking at editing. Two in a row, I said Indus we.
Have you got a little lisp that we need to know about?
I think you should lean into it.
I think it's because Jake makes me drink a beer before we record, and I struggle to alliterate.
Oh, yeah, I can see him forcing you.
I know. Well,
twist his rubber arm.
It's a bit hard from here. Actually, it's the first episode we've done since I've moved to Adelaide, so that's why I'm in a hoodie, and you guys are wearing tees.
Well, it's going to be like 30 degrees today. I'm going fishing this afternoon.
Thanks, mate. It's 12 degrees and windy and rainy down here. So it's just beautiful Adelaide spring.
Definitely beer drinking weather up here, mate.
You being in Adelaide is making it a bit harder for us to synchronise our beers for these podcasts.
I know. That's the problem, isn't it? But yeah, I think we probably had enough time to organise the same beers. I think we waited online for about 30 hours with Jake mucking around trying to get his microphone working. Today, but you're the young one too, mate. You're the one that's meant to be good at this stuff. But this is episode 8 of the Well Brewed podcast. Today we're talking about safety in breweries. But first, what are we drinking, lads? We've all got something different today. What do you got, Clemmy?
Yeah. I've got White Lake's 100-Day Pilsner. It's a limited release. My old mate, Simo, from across the way.
Yes.
He's got some street cred brewing lagers, so
yes,
I'm expecting good things here.
What's this 100-day Pilsner thing has cropped up in the last 12 months as totally like an in vogue, cool thing to do, right? I've never made one because I'm not patient enough.
Me neither, but I just I was on their website earlier, and like they've got a 100-day IPA as well. So I'm not sure if it's something to do with their 100 years of being in business or like being in hospitality, because they've got quite an old hospitality venue. So I'm wondering if they're leaning into that rather than anything else, other than any 100-day maturation or.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm not. Yeah, there you go. He's struggling with that bottle opener, Jake.
No.
Thought they worked well. What are you drinking, Jake?
I've got a lovely Heads of Noosa crisp lager, Japanese
Beautiful
lager that they do. Lance and Craig coming up with the goods.
That's good beer. I'm repping the SA crew today. I've got Shapeshifter, some old friends down there, James and Carla. Cheers. Drinking California Pale. It's a couple of weeks old. It smells fantastic. I would say that these guys are making some of the best hoppy lagers, not just in SA, but in Australia these days. So
I've waited so long for Jake that my beer's a little bit warm.
Is that? I know, yeah. Well, mine, I had time to put mine back in the fridge and get it cold again.
Yeah.
Thanks for that, mate. Anyway, so I might kick off. So, like, I guess I'd like to start by saying that safety is cool. There's nothing sexier than having everyone that works at your brewery go home to their families every night safe and healthy. It's becoming more and more of a talked about, thing in breweries and industry in general. And so it should be, but it's a beast of a topic. There's so much to talk about. We could go down like oodles of rabbit holes and spend an hour just on one thing. But I think today we'll just try and keep it a bit more practical and educational. Start with some stuff that people can implement themselves and is going to help them get off the ground when they're starting a brewery. So where do we start? How do we actually do things and implement things and make sure that we're, getting off on the right foot and making sure that everyone's going home safe. So, Clemmy, do you want to kick us off with some high-level thoughts about safety?
I mean, I think most people know my background is with the big boys, and one of the things they actually do really well, I think, is focus on safety and try and keep safety a very high priority in everything they do in operations. Now, some of my colleagues may say they go over the top now, but it's certainly an important aspect of what we do, because we've spoken about it before, haven't we? Everyone thinks breweries are this wonderful place that you can swan into and grab a beer and chat with your mates, and just generally it's a fun place, happy-go-lucky place to be. In actual fact, you've got so many hazards in breweries that it isn't something we need to. It isn't something that should be taken lightly. We have pressure, electricity, hot pipes, nasty chemicals, a whole combination of hazards that in any one day could be a problem. So I guess from a practical and pragmatic approach, if you're building a brewery, because this is all about building breweries, if you're building a brewery, funny that. If you're building a brewery, you need to design safety into the early stages of your build. You need to make it a forethought rather than an afterthought. So you need to consider how you're going to operate your brewery safely when you're doing the design. So
workflow.
Yeah, workflow. So how are you going to dry hop your beers? Like if you've got very tall tanks, consider how you're going to manage that. Where are you going to put your chemical handling, or your chemical storage, so that you've got safe chemical handling? Are you going to use dosing systems with your chemical handling? When you're buying hoses, make sure you're buying swaged end hoses, so there's no chance that under a little bit of pressure that hose end doesn't come flying off. Where are you going to run hot pipes? Are you going to make sure you can either eliminate that hazard by running them in areas that are not going to be passageways or thoroughfares?
Or you're having to reach over a steam pipe to operate a valve or something,
Exactly.
like it's just fraught with danger.
All of those things. Where are you going to put your CIP system so it's central and you can plumb things up and you can operate it and you can move chemical into it safely so that you can transfer it around the brewery without having to physically touch chemicals all the time? How are you going to manage high pressure such as CO2 and air? So having one-way flow valves on quick connects and things like that, so you can't physically hurt yourself with high pressure. If you can consider all of these as part of your design and a forethought rather than afterthought, you can save yourself a lot of trouble. And if we look at the hierarchy of controls, which we'll probably talk about, you can eliminate some of those things that are serious safety concerns right at the get-go, rather than have to deal with them day in, day out. And one of the things the big breweries do is they think of safety as in a proactive way rather than a reactive way. So there's lots of different ways to consider safety proactively, but one of the ways that we used to do it in the big house was we would do.
I didn't know you'd been in the big house, Clemmy.
Oh, sorry, not that house.
You're quite an upstanding citizen. Maybe you reformed the justice system works, eh?
Oh, that's what happens when you drink too many beers.
Sorry, I shouldn't interrupt.
No, that's all right. You can. Yeah, and Jake, you might want to talk about this a little bit more, as some hazard analyses of your operations, or you're doing audits, you're doing safety audits, so that you're actually physically going out and checking for hazards and reviewing what's going on in the brewery. So just some safety walkarounds and things like that, if you can incorporate into the weekly operations or daily operations of the brewery, it needs to become a mindset.
Part of the
everyone
culture.
involved.
Yeah, because people often have the attitude of like, it's a pain in the ass to do, the safety walk around or talk about it or fix things. It's easier, or we'll just, you know, work around it, or, like it becomes a drag. Whereas it really, like you say, Jake, needs to become part of your culture where safety is the most important thing, like it should be the first thing you raise in any meetings, toolbox, management meetings, whatever. It's always the first agenda item. And we really should be prioritizing it because it is the most important thing in your brewery. More important than quality of beer, more important than production time schedules, more important than keeping your boss happy. It should be the number one, right?
Absolutely. Now, one of the things, and I want to ask you guys this is, fine for the big house.
Mm.
They've got big budgets and they focus their priority on safety, and so money is spent on safety.
Yep.
Now we're in a world where everything's tight at the moment. Operations of breweries are seeing, we're in a downturn where people are selling. Some people are selling less beers. There's less available money.
Mm.
How do we budget, or how do we keep it a priority, and how do you make sure that that's still a number one focus?
I guess people need to make the time and put aside a small amount of budget, because preventative maintenance on things is often a lot cheaper than running it to fail and being able to like not produce beer for a few months.
Mm.
Or worse yet, something failing and hurting somebody. So It's really about, it wouldn't cost that much money to put together a maintenance schedule. It doesn't cost much money to take 5 minutes on a Friday to walk around the plant and look and listen and try to find things that could become potential events in the future. Like go and do some hazard identification.
Mm-hmm.
If you've got a big steam leak, like fix it.
Mm.
Like not only is that going to be causing your boiler to lose pressure faster, and then you're not getting efficiency, you're going to be burning more gas. Like it's also got the potential to become quite a hazardous pain point in the future.
Yep.
I think doing those little things on the regular not only protects your equipment and your staff, but also can save you money. So it's hard to put a definitive cost on these things, but when push comes to shove, if your boiler fails because it's been cycling too much and your burner goes, or you blow a steam tube because you've been behind on you're scheduling your routine maintenance on it, it's going to be a much more detrimental to your bottom line than doing the service or doing the maintenance.
You injure someone,
Yes.
the loss in time, the personal and private loss for the individual. That you can't put dollar values on some of these things.
Yeah, I guess like there more often than not there is a business case for doing these things when you run the numbers. But if you could bear with me a sec, I wouldn't mind just having a little getting on my soapbox here and having a little rant about safety. Is that I'm a really firm believer in safety and safety in breweries, but I think safety at its core, at its essence, and it sounds so silly, should be about keeping people safe.
Yeah.
Like, there's so many conversations I've heard or people talk about safety. The purpose of implementing a safety system is to cover your ass, is to make sure the directors don't go to jail, is to make sure you're not in hot water. That is absolutely 100% not the point of a safety system. And if people are talking like that, they're totally backwards and they're getting the wrong idea. And it's really not a nice environment to be in. The purpose of a safety system is to keep people safe. And if you approach it with that mindset and come at it and look at your systems and how you're approaching hazards and identifying them, then it's a much healthier way, much more positive way to approach it rather than I'm just covering my ass, because it's wrong, in my opinion.
I'll take it one step further as well. And if you are, as a business owner or manager of a team, and you are genuinely concerned about people's safety, everyone can see that, and everyone bands together to make sure they keep each other safe. And so if you're doing it for the genuinely right reasons, I've said genuinely like 7 times there, but
it's because you're a very genuine guy since you got out of the big house.
But it's that mindset, right? That has to come from the top.
Yeah.
And if you are serious about it, then everyone else can see that. And there's innovative ways to make sure that you keep everyone safe. You don't have to spend oodles and oodles of cash all the time to fix things to make everything safe. There's innovative ways, if you get together as a group, that you can make sure that you're still operating in a safe way.
Yeah, and that's probably a good point to circle back to the hierarchy of controls.
Why don't we set it up as an example, Jake? Why don't we go, you give us a rundown of what the hierarchy of controls are, and then we'll do an example of to how each of them can be applied in the real world.
Yeah, so I think let's use, this is a personal bee in my bonnet because I don't really think that it needs to be used around breweries. Yep. But nitric acid for remedial cleaning. You're dosing nitric acid to clean something into a bucket. You've got a 20-litre jug of nitric acid, and the current situation is you're picking that up, pouring it in there, it's splashing, you're wearing gloves, whatever. It's still not great. So if we look at the hierarchy of controls, the first one is elimination. So that would be completely eliminating nitric from your procedures. You could use...
Or that acid clean completely, right?
Or that acid clean. Is that acid clean
necessary?
Necessary. Yeah. Or is there any other alternatives that are less hazardous to the individual when performing said task, such as 10% citric acid?
Yes. Substitution, which is number 2.
Yep. Engineering controls are things like, okay, let's design a system where we minimize the actual handling of the substance. So in this situation, maybe we put chemical dosing pumps that make it up to the right dilution into the bucket. Yep. So there's no real reason for the person or the individual to splash it around and get it on them in a high concentrated form.
Yep.
Then after engineering controls, you've got administrative controls, things like, writing procedures on how to do it properly without hurting yourself. Then training.
No, PPE.
So PPE is the last
training would be administrative.
The training falls under administrative, and then PPE is the last level. Wearing safety glasses, wearing gloves, making sure everything that you need to perform that task properly is actually provided. Have a budget for your brewers to go and get a new set of boots every 3 months, because caustic, even dilute caustic, dries out leather like crazy, and they all crack.
Just eats it, man. Like Pac-Man with a little lolly.
Yeah.
You guys are going to look after your boots better.
No, you got to do more work on the brewery floor.
Yeah,
it's good at your computer brewer.
Yeah,
clean them and put that water, the oil and stuff.
Dubbing.
On. Yeah,
dubbing. I've tried dubbing. It lasted a week longer.
Yeah, well, it's all organic based, right? So it's
Just caustic just chews through it.
yeah, exactly.
My boots normally last about 3 months before they have holes.
Yeah, yeah. We always did 12 weeks. You get an allowance to get a new pair of boots every 12 weeks.
And that's
Probably fair.
realistically, that's not a huge expense. Whereas having somebody's skin fall off because they've got caustic down their boot is going to cost you way more than $100 in boots to pay their wages for 3 months while they sit on the couch and heal from their skin falling off.
Yep. So let's just go hierarchy of control again. So this is the order in which you should try and control a hazard, right? So you've got elimination, substitution, engineering controls, administrative controls, and then PPE is your last line of defense.
Yeah. So I would say to people, when you're starting to look at this, become aware of the potential hazards in a brewery, which we might touch on some of them. I know Clemmy did slightly, but we might just list them out so people have, if they're coming into this completely new from a home brewer point of view, they might not be aware of some of these hazards.
Yep.
So there's things that are pretty obvious, but you don't really realize the impact that it can have on operators when they get going, like strains and sprains. Like you're lifting up 25 kilo sacks of barley frequently, or 63 kilo kegs. So if you don't have the appropriate keg handling apparatus,
you're an apparatus,
and make it easy for brewers to do it, because operators, brewers in particular, are all tough guys that can pick a keg up and sling it onto the back of the ute or whatever, but they do that until they get a hernia. So
you break your back. I wouldn't be lifting 65 kilos by myself. I know I look strong, but I'm not.
But buy a keg trolley, that sort of thing. It's obvious. It's obvious to me because I'm in the industry, but a lot of people just just mill those bags back into bags and carry them up to the mash tun. No, spend $2,000 on an auger. It's not that big of a deal.
So manual handling?
Manual handling is a big one.
What else we got?
Slips, trips, and falls is another really obvious one that a lot of people don't seem to heed. When you're building a brewery, put a non-slip surface in, because if you don't have appropriate fall on the floor, it can build up biofilm even if you're cleaning your floors regularly. And if you don't have a grit or something that's non-slip broadcast on your floors, then it will become incredibly slippery.
Is broadcast the right term for that? It sounds
it's when they broadcast the sand in between the layers of epoxy.
Oh, it's beautiful.
That's what they call it.
I've heard spread and sprinkle.
Spread and sprinkle.
Yeah,
that's a good one too.
I think that's what you do when you're icing a cake, though, isn't it?
Yep.
Yeah.
Or a donut.
You've been off the tools for too long.
Broadcast is good.
Yeah, that's what all the concreters I speak to on a regular call it broadcasting.
Yeah.
Right. Oh, there you go. Cool. No, sorry.
I hang out with a lot of concreters.
What about trips and falls? Like hoses are a big trip hazard?
Yes.
Breweries?
I mean, it's almost an unavoidable one in most instances. I would say it falls back to what Clemmy touched on before, which was design your brewery to have solid workflow. You want to move raws in this side, produce the beer, and then they keep moving along and have as little crossovers as you can. You don't want to be bringing forklifts through the middle of your production zone. You don't want people running backwards and forwards all the time. It's just minimize, it will mitigate the risk.
Yep. What else we got? You would eliminate it.
You could hard pipe everything, but I know not everybody's made out of
stainless steel pipe.
So hard piping is probably not realistic in Australia.
Only Bender Futurama is made out of stainless steel. Anyway, sorry. Manual handling, slips, trips, and falls. What else we got? Burns.
Burns is a big one. Yeah, we've touched on that. Don't touch hot pipes. Keep hot pipes away from where your control valves are.
Or try to limit your handling of neat chemicals as well.
Yes. Yep. Dosing pumps, that's a good one. Falls is a big one. We're climbing up on top of fermenters all the time to inspect them, to pitch, to
Yeah.
put hops in. Like
Cacao nibs.
one of the things we do is we design our tanks to have ladder hooks on the front of them. I know a lot of people confuse them for hose racks, but they're actually ladder
dual
hooks.
purpose, mate.
Dual purpose, yes.
Yeah. We're not trying to sell you anything, by the way.
Like that's probably the minimum that you could do.
But what about, like, ladders aren't great either?
No, personally, I like a platform ladder that's tall enough to get up there.
Or I like scissor lifts, man.
Scissor lifts are great, but they're not the cheapest.
Yeah.
You can pick up normally you can pick up scaffold that's on casters for pretty cheap and have a scaffold platform that you wheel around.
Or we've used man cages that go on the front of forklifts quite a bit. I think I bought one for like under $1,000, $500.
Yeah, I've worked with
it was
those
so
before.
cheap, and they're like, it's 2-person operate, but they're way safer than using a.
I know, but if you've got to put a few hundred
ladder.
kilos of fruit into a sour or something, and you've got boxes and boxes of fruit pulp to go in, that's an easy way to pick it up.
Yeah.
Take it up to the top so you're not going up and down.
Yeah.
Then the last one, which kind of segues nicely into
Hi, Mum.
pressure vessel. Talking about pressure vessels is pressure. I know there's a lot of brewers that like to operate at higher pressures to carbonate quicker. Really, it comes down to the experience of the brewers and what their ability is to operate more hazard. Obviously, greater the pressure, the higher the hazard. Even 1 bar of pressure, which is quite low, probably the most standard that you'll get tanks at, is a lot of pressure. It's quite dangerous at that volume.
Yep.
Especially the larger the vessel.
So it's a procedural thing. So you don't want to increase your pressure more than what you have to. Obviously, you increase your pressure, you can carbonate quicker. But it's a trade-off for safety.
Cool your tank down lower.
Cool your tank down lower.
Right.
That's another good way to increase your carbonation.
Yeah. -2 degree beer is safer than 3 bar of head pressure.
Yeah.
You heard it here first.
Depends on the beer that you're making. I don't want people freezing mid-strengths.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
Look at the freeze point.
Doesn't go to -2, but
Yeah.
-1's all right.
You're right.
Time below 0. I guess, like, the only other thing I was thinking about was resources. Like, there's a lot of free resources out there for safety in general. Like, I know WorkSafe, in whatever state you are or whatever country you're in, I've used a lot of the free resources and templates from WorkSafe Queensland before. There's JSAs, there's safety walkthrough, there's meeting minute capture things, there's hazard analyses, there's all these different templates and forms and guidance that you can use, and it's all free with, through WorkSafe, etc. You can pay people come and set this stuff up from you, but it's reasonably intuitive. I mean, the thing with hazard, analyses and safety walk-arounds is actually just walking around by yourself or with another person and just looking at the plan and just thinking about it from a, standing back and not as an operator, as a observer, and thinking about how people could potentially hurt themselves and trying your best to eliminate those hazards or working through the hierarchy of control to make sure that people are safe. And that's really what a safety system is about, right? It's about like identifying hazards, putting the right controls in place, documenting it correctly, and then providing the tools and PPE, etc., procedures, administrative, whatever, to your staff so that they can, or to yourself, so that you can go about your daily life safely. This podcast is like general advice from our experience. This is not, we're not advising you exactly how you should implement your safety system. This is not legal or professional advice. It's just more of an overview of how we've seen it done before and how we think you should be implementing it as a general oversight.
One other thing, like we talked about resources, like the industry as a whole has quite a high turnover of people. Safety is something you can't take your foot off the pedal on.
Yeah.
Every new person that comes into your business needs to be inducted into what the safety hazards are. So if you have these systems like the hazard analyses that's been done, you have the systems where you're doing safety audits, you're having meetings where we talk about safety. That all goes a long way to creating that safety culture that everyone needs to be exposed to. Even when you're turning people over, like there's some great resources around, like you said, at Workplace Queensland. I've found also there's some awesome videos like on the Brewers Association, the American website.
Yeah.
Some great videos like on safety where, it's a universal thing that we work with, right? Like in every brewery, whether you're in the US, whether you're in Queensland, like, the same hazards apply, and those videos that those guys do are pretty awesome as well, just to get people aware, making sure that they're aware of what the impact of pressure, hot pipes and hot water, and where you set your hot liquor tank temperature, all of those things. If you've got like a good induction process for every new person, then that can because it's often the people that are inexperienced that end up hurting themselves. So I can't reiterate enough that everyone that's bought into the business needs to be made very clear to them that this is a very hazardous environment.
Yep, 100%. And can I just reiterate that wear your safety glasses. Like, for fuck's sake, we're not meant to swear on the podcast, but for fuck's sake, put your safety glasses on. Like, the amount of friends I've seen get a face full of caustic, still have their eyesight because they had, safety glasses on or acid in their eyes. It's such a simple thing. I feel naked in a brewery without safety glasses on now, and you should drill it into everyone. It is like the easiest, cheapest thing to do. And you're handling dangerous chemicals all the time, pressure, just like wear safety glasses, man. Like, can't stress it enough.
Yeah, good call.
So I guess we might wrap it up there, guys. Just a bit of a summary. We had safety should be forethought rather than afterthought. It should really be about keeping people safe. Like that really, I know it sounds really dumb and silly, but that's really the core of any safety system. It should be like around building a culture of safety. It's the most important thing. It's more important than your beer quality is making sure that your staff and yourself get home to your families and your loved ones safe and healthy every single day after they finish work. That's pretty much my rant and my summary about that. There's a lot of good resources. We might link them in the show notes if I have the inclination to go and find the links. But now I've said it, I'm going to have to. So cheers for that. I'm off to make a fruitcake.
Safely
with my safety glasses on. But no, that's about it for episode 8 of the Well Brewed podcast. And as always, this is like the first episode we've recorded. We recorded a heap at the start, and so we're building up some questions for one of the last episodes. We're going to do a bit of Q&A. So if you have any ideas or subjects you want us to hear us talk about or any questions, please hit us up, Facebook or Instagram. It's actually at Well Brewed Equipment. We've changed handles now, so some of the old ones are outdated. Or email us at podcast@wellbrewed.com.au. That's it. I just got to give a shout out to my mate Caroline, who texted me last night and said he's loving the podcast and he's not a brewer, but he's an old friend. So there you go, Caroline. Cheers.
Cheers.
See you guys.